Hello, everybody, and welcome to the P1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. I don't really understand how we're here. Are we living in a simulation? We head to Abu Dhabi, a three-way fight, and Max Verstappen is the closest challenger to Lando Norris, 12 points behind. Tommy, how the hell are we here?
How the hell are we here? Because of a certain team in orange or papaya, whichever way you want judge it, are basically doing everything they can to make sure that this goes down to the wire when they should have won this championship. Well, and we thought they had won this championship by the summer break. It should have been an inevitability that it was between Norris and Piastri, and there's no way they could possibly lose it. They were getting 1-2s for fun in the middle of the season. If you'd have said at that point when they got, I think it was like 4 straight 1-2s, that we'd be here and it would be Max Verstappen would be 12 points behind after winning both races, like the previous 2 races, like what on earth is happening? Like it's insane how it's just kept going on and on.
It just keeps going on and on. So, of course, today we're going to chat all about the Qatar Grand Prix, which was an absolute stinker, but we have lots of things to talk about all the same, and I'm sure you're very excited for us to get into that. A quick shout out to our wonderful Patreons who'll be getting extra chat, which once again, same as Las Vegas, you're getting some extra sauce at the end of this and every race review this season, and what a bizarre thing to speak about. And also as well, tickets are still available for Manchester and Dublin. There's a few tickets left in Dublin if you want to see us in just over a week's time, where the show keeps evolving and
I'm literally not going to finish it. Like, going to basically be doing like on the plane because we don't know who's won the title yet. Crazy.
Tommy's not flying to Manchester, by the way. He's flying to Dublin. He's not that much of a diva.
That's first.
Right. I know you're here for one thing, and I've put it as my most memorable moment, which is McLaren strategy fumble. I am absolutely convinced that McLaren are a huge fan of the P1 podcast.
Or Max Verstappen.
They want storyline after storyline after storyline in a season which has not had the most amazing races, if we're being completely honest. The championship picture has always been quite interesting. We've not had many bangers. So what McLaren thought they'd do is let's move the attention away from Qatar being the worst Grand Prix potentially on the calendar to strategy errors. I joked at the start of the watch along, how are McLaren going to F this one up then? As a joke, obviously nodding to Las Vegas where they got double DSQ'd. And this is, I know we have the benefit of hindsight, but this is a decision I've mulled upon a little bit and thought, and it's got worse every time I've thought about it.
Yeah.
I am absolutely bewildered that they did not pit both drivers. But I'm genuinely shocked that the one thing that everyone was speaking about was, of course, the 25-lap maximum stint on the tyres, and also the lap window of when a safety car might happen. Of course, it was 57 laps. So lap 7, the safety car came out, which is the prime moment to then get essentially a free pit stop, to then have one more 25 laps later, and it's done. McLaren did not pit either of their drivers, and the reason Andrea Stella said was that they didn't know if everyone else would pit behind. Of course they're going to pit behind. Why would they not pit behind? It's a free pit stop. They have to pit twice. It is absolutely outrageous that they didn't stop either of their drivers. I would understand to some degree, and this is where we'll get into it a little bit later as well, Tommy, of, splitting and going with Lando in and Oscar out. But, there are plenty of theories as to why they didn't split the strategies. That they just gave the race to Max Verstappen in that moment.
They did. It was a gift. It was, if you thought that Vegas was a gift for Max, they've given him another one right now with a lovely little bow on it as well, because they had that race won so easily. They were the fastest package by a mile. We saw it in the sprint. Max finished fourth in the sprint race, and Oscar won easily and was going to win easily again. They were so quick. We've not had any kind of... It's just an absolutely insane scenario. The only way they could have lost it, we said it, weirdly, at the watch-along, you said, could McLaren like fumble this? And I said the only way McLaren aren't winning this is if they do something themselves. And that is exactly what happened. The decision to not pit was an absolutely insane one when the scenario was that basically like that there was the mandatory stops because of the tyre wear and the worry about the tyres exploding again. So basically a safety car, that should have been the first thing of like, if there's a safety car near the start, you have to pit, like 100%. And I know there's the worry, and this is their excuse, that like, if Oscar Piastri goes in and everyone else stays out, he looks like an idiot. But they were never going to do that because it was a free pit stop. It was free. And it's a 26-second time as well.
It's the difference of the fact that if this was a normal race where the 25-lap maximum stint length wasn't involved, yes, they should stay out.
Yeah,
because
100%.
They're 7-lap-old mediums, and I don't think many people would pit. But it's not. That's not what we had in front of us. And McLaren just gave a free pit stop to the entire field. Let's get into a question, because I am just, as you can quite clearly tell, utterly bamboozled as to what has gone on today. Question from Googson98. Did McLaren decide not to pit both drivers during the safety car to protect Norris from losing places in the double stack? There is no other reason for it.
I don't know where I sit on this one, because I think that is a crazy theory to think that's somehow benefiting Lando, because Lando himself was like, I want to pit. And they said, obviously, like, no, we're staying out. This is fine, when obviously it clearly wasn't. And Lando is fortunate.
Did he want to pit, or did he question it afterwards? He questioned.
I think he was like, we should have pitted with Verstappen. I'm sure there was a radio that said something along those lines.
The way I saw that was an after thought,
like, why have we done this?
I want a box, and they say no, stay out.
Once you've seen everyone out. But regardless, like, if they really wanted to favour Lando, they'd have pitted Lando and made sure he'd stayed with Max. And if McLaren are really this team that it's all about Lando, which I don't think they are as much. We've had this conversation many times that we all know where Zach Brown's allegiances lie, but they're not. This is arguably why arguably this is why they're in this situation, because they can't decide on picking a driver. And I don't think that Piastri, they've done it to help Norris in any way. They've just completely missed it here. They've just completely screwed it up by not pitting them, and immediately realised that it's the wrong decision, even though, on the radio they kind of played it off to be like, no, it's still fine. But I mean, Lando Norris in particular will be counting his lucky stars that Fernando Alonso wasn't a little bit quicker, because he would have ended up in an even bigger train. And we saw how hard it was to pass for him, because I truly believe McLaren was set up to lead from the front. They didn't think about, you could tell, because they had DRS on Antonelli and they didn't even gain on him. They weren't thinking about passing. They didn't set up their car for straight line speed or anything. And it's an insane situation, but I don't think it was there to protect Norris at all.
No, I don't think I'm in complete agreement that I don't think they were concerned about the double stack causing Lando to lose positions. I genuinely believe they thought that was the correct decision to stay out. I know that some people will think, is it the fairness side of things as well, the papaya rules, etc., etc. I'm torn on that one. I don't know where I sit with, is it
same. Like, did they worry about it looking really bad if Oscar got screwed? Right? Yeah,
exactly that. I genuinely think this is just a McLaren disaster as opposed to fairness. I think I lean slightly more in that camp. I don't know. I really don't understand why they decided to stay out. It made no sense, as I've made quite clear with my point previously. And they've, as you say, they were so lucky to not get into a 7 or 8 car long train that Alonso was causing. For at least for Lando, who narrowly, with an amazing pit stop, came out ahead of them, and he couldn't go any further laps because it was at his 25 lap maximum stint length. Right, let's get into another question. P1 Patreon member, the Pain Train 84. They've won the constructors by miles, but are McLaren about to potentially pull off the biggest bottle job of all time? And it genuinely feels like a fever dream that we're talking about this, that Lando is leading Max by 12 points. When you think about the start, of course, Max did get ahead of Lando at the start, and you thought, all right, he's going to gain 3 points on Lando, and he'll be 22 behind going into Abu Dhabi, and Oscar would have been the closest challenger. McLaren, this strategy call is one of the worst I can remember for a very long time. And it doesn't instill me with confidence that they will win this Drivers' Championship in Abu Dhabi. The pressure is clearly getting to them. A baffling call aside, they've made other errors as well. Like, this Drivers' Championship should be sewn up. We all know that. This is, look at the amount of points they've got in the constructors. Their car is the best car and has been for the majority of the season. We go to Abu Dhabi, where I've put a scenario out on my Twitter, which could absolutely happen, where you've got Max leading, Oscar second, George third, Lando fourth. We then enter an entirely different realm of what do McLaren do in that situation if they've been talking about fairness and they don't care if they lose the drivers. It's all about the driver. We can lose it to Max. That's fine. But that is a genuine scenario that could happen. And then McLaren have this entire discussion that they have to make as well, live on team radio, that we'll all be listening to, of pleading Oscar to slow down potentially, to get Lando into a championship winning position. And that should not, none of this should be happening.
None of this should be happening.
The fact that we're even discussing this as a scenario in the final race is baffling. McLaren, they have done a phenomenal job at building a car. Hats off to the people at that team that have created a car to dominate in the constructors. But they are not a championship winning team in the strategy department and in making big decisions. Had Red Bull created a similar package across the year, Max would have won this title with 2-3 races to go.
I know Max has said that and be like, if we were in this situation, and people would be like, oh, it's a bit of trash talking. But he's absolutely right, because they shouldn't be in this situation at all. He made a cheeky comment again now just to Sky Sports, where they said, oh, you said it was a gift after what happened in Vegas, and Max went, and another one today. And it's absolutely right. The only reason Max is in this title this close is because of the errors that they've made. Don't get me wrong, he's been absolutely brilliant and has put in one of the best comebacks and most amazing championship campaigns for the machinery that he has, because it's not been a race-winning car for a lot of the season, and yet he now, is in the championship hunt, and they've all got 7 wins between them. That should absolutely not be the case at all. And, is it the biggest bottle job of all time if they lose it? It's arguably even worse, and I can't believe we're saying this, even worse than 2007 when they lost it with Lewis Hamilton, where basically he had the smallest number of points to get it, and then equally Fernando Alonso could have won it as well, and they ended up losing it with both cars, which was so bad. The conspiracy theories are still that they threw the title on purpose because of Spygate and then weren't allowed to win it and stuff. That's how bad it was. And arguably this is even worse because Lando Norris had the championship won after Brazil. He'd beaten Max Verstappen. He'd won the race again. Mexico, you thought, right, it's a big struggle for Max now. Brazil, he won the race. Max was third. All he's had to do is score the smallest number of points. And this isn't on Lando. And instead, he has obviously lost the 18 points from second place. And today, fumbled a potential, weirdly for Lando, he would probably have been P3, maybe P2 if he'd have overtaken. I don't know if he would with the in terms of how difficult it was to pass. But they are just throwing points down the toilet at the end with these big errors. And the pessimist in me will be it's still in Lando's hands. It's still a massive opportunity. But the evidence is there now that McLaren are pooping their pants at this situation, to put it lightly, and have made two absolutely enormous errors in the last two races to basically put Max Verstappen in a shot of winning the world title.
They have this mistake they've made this weekend. They've lost to a Williams with Lando Norris. They've
in
given
a car
Carlos
that should have won
Sainz
the race
a
by
podium.
20 seconds, I reckon.
Yeah, we'll get on to Carlos later because Carlos, phenomenal drive in a Williams. He's, again, like another podium. Ridiculous. Nothing, I don't want to take anything away from Carlos, but he is in a tractor compared to that McLaren. 100%. And McLaren have given Carlos a podium and put Lando in P4. Should have been P5 even without Kimi's mistake on the penultimate lap, which we'll get into. But it's just insane. But for me, obviously, I'm very excited because we get a championship decider, right? This is what I've been hoping for this entire time. And McLaren have gone, here you go, guys. Thank you so much. We'll give you some content for the final one.
I just want to bring up a point here that I've just read on Twitter that, we were mentioning about the whole double stack and how you play it and is it favouring whoever. And, we've had these thoughts that you said as well, and it's in the back of my mind that is this like McLaren in a weird way, like trying to be so fair that they've done it with them both, because Callum F1 Mech on Twitter, former Red Bull employee, put option 1, you risk the double stop. Yes, Lando is likely compromised, but easily has the pace to challenge for at least P2 and Oscar wins the race easily. Option 2, you don't want to risk the double stop, so you split the strategies. It's going to work for one driver, but at least you're still in control of the race. Option 3, whatever McLaren just did. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Like, they had the race in their hands with two cars, and they managed to both lose it.
I just can't believe they wouldn't have played out that scenario in their, when they're prepping for the race of like, okay, we're at the front, a safety car comes out, when we can get into that free pit stop window, what do we do? And clearly, like, how have they sat down and they would have spoken about it? It's not like this is, oh my God, what do we do? We've not spoken about it. Surely they've discussed this as a scenario. And they go, yes, that's what we do. We stay out. Utterly insane, as we know. And also as well, Lando was behind Max. Let's not forget. It's not like we had the two McLarens line astern. So their strategy
Max doesn't
goes in,
make sense.
Lando follows. He has to.
He has to follow. All he has to do is match Max Verstappen. Like, it's crazy. Like, madness from McLaren.
And Lando knew straight afterwards as well. He said it on the team radio. He said, should we not have come in? Yes, you should have. And
and they tried to spin it like, oh, well, we get to push now, and they don't. But
we have the flexibility if we have another safety car, which, to be fair, right, if there was another safety car, yes, McLaren would have more flexibility. But that's hoping for another safety car.
That's not the play. Yeah.
You're McLaren. You're the fastest team. Why are you like planning on another safety car to get the advantage back? You should always have had the advantage. Anyway, you can tell where we sit on this one. Next question, P1 Pitch, remember, a good Karen. How angry is Oscar going to be that the team has shafted him completely when he has been flawless all weekend?
Yeah, I'm gutted for Oscar. Obviously, as a Max fan, I'm happy that he's got into the title, but that was Oscar's race, and particularly with Lando in third place, that was Oscar's race to get back into the championship here. It would have been 12 points, which is still a decent gap, but doable. He showed amazing form, and you've got to think, Abu Dhabi should do well there as well, based on what we've seen at McLaren, but you never know how McLaren are going to go with these things based on the last two races. But you could see and understand why he was visibly absolutely fuming at that situation. He had the race won. He's been on such a poor run that he needed to turn his form around, and Lando to finish, out there for him to have a chance. It's absolutely gutting for him because he needs a miracle. Obviously, he's in the championship now, but he still would have needed a big ask going into the final race, but it would have been a lot closer and would have arguably put even more pressure on McLaren of what do they do, like picking a side and stuff in that situation. But I can understand why Oscar was absolutely fuming at the end of that race because he was going to win comfortably.
He was going to win. He was absolutely brilliant this weekend. Oscar, out of nowhere, fastest in almost every competitive session, bar the one, obviously, that mattered the most, which was the main race. But that was down to McLaren. You play out the scenario where McLaren get the strategy right and they come into the box. It finishes Piastri, Verstappen, Norris, let's say. A safe, realistic bet that Norris doesn't manage to catch and pass Verstappen. Oscar is now in Max's position, 12 points behind, into the final race, and it's all to play for. Instead, he's 16 behind, and he needs
a Lando DNF, basically.
Yeah, he needs a Lando DNF, or he needs that crazy scenario with Webber and Alonso where they get stuck in traffic in 7th and 8th, and everything kicks off that way and he wins. It's sad for Oscar because I think he knew. He said he was speechless after the race. I really felt for him because he picked up his form when it mattered most, maybe a race or two late, but still, to ask the question to his teammate going into the final race. But now instead he is a massive outside shot for the title. And yeah, it just requires even more chaos. And sadly, he can't even rely on Ferrari to get involved because they're too busy fighting for 13th, which we saw this weekend. And hopefully we don't have to talk about it anymore. We've kind of covered the Ferrari disaster class. But yes, Oscar, I totally feel for him. I really do. Question from P1 Patreon member Anastasia W. Will McLaren finally make a clear last call on which driver they're backing next week to avoid losing the Drivers' Championship? No, they will not. They have committed, and maybe contractually, the reason, that both drivers are clear to fight for the championship. My brain then goes into overdrive of when that ends, because as I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast, let's say Max is winning, Oscar's second, George is third, Lando's fourth. It stays like that. Max Verstappen is world champion. Oscar, I imagine, with a few laps to go, will get a call of, can you help Lando into third place? And this is with like a driver in the way as well. I genuinely believe McLaren would come over the radio with a few laps to go. But in Oscar's situation, and Mark Webber, I think, will instill in him over the next few days that the worst thing for Oscar is that Lando becomes world champion from a power play perspective within McLaren. It's a disaster for Oscar.
We said that last year.
Yeah, exactly.
When he wasn't even in the shot.
So no, McLaren can't commit. They might have to try and commit if S hits the fan in the last few laps and Max is on to win the title. But I think Oscar is well within his rights to say, well, what if Max DNFs? What if Lando and Max have a problem in the last few laps?
What if Max gets disqualified for plank wear at the end?
Yeah, or
there's going to be so many things like that, like Mark Webber will be, of course, saying absolutely not. You do not bow down to Lando because you can't afford to do it for your career. And also, an if moment, if there's a disqualification. Like, I know it's like an insane scenario, but this championship has just been throwing absolutely insane scenarios left, right, and centre.
I will add as well quickly, Andrea Stella, I believe, said after the race that they wouldn't do this. They wouldn't back either driver because both of them are mathematically still in a chance of winning the world championship. And that is the way it should be. Oscar can't be told to move aside at the start of the weekend.
Or the start of the race, or
at the start of the race.
Because too much can happen. Late safety cars, things like that.
Mate, I cannot wait for next weekend. I know that Lando is still the favourite. And look, if Lando wins the World Championship after all this BS, fair play to him, because there has been so many things out of his hands that McLaren have let him down, especially in the last two weekends. Yeah. Lando should be the world champion at the end of this weekend.
He absolutely should.
If we count Las Vegas and the fact he should have had those points, but the plank and that's not down to him.
The plank, the DNF, and Zandvoort, loads of things.
I am so, as a Formula One fan that is obviously neutral to this scenario, and I just want to see a great battle. Charles Leclerc sadly mathematically out of the World Championship fight, for those of you that didn't know. I am so excited to see just how every part of the next weekend plays out. Qualifying, track limits, mistakes, Q1, Q2, anything can happen with the three title rivals that can open it up once again. This is, as I want to repeat, not a scenario we should be talking about McLaren, but we are, and I thank you for it, because it's going to make us have a three-way title decider in Abu Dhabi, and I just cannot wait for it.
After this podcast, I urge everyone to go listen to our prediction we did, where we predicted the entire championship table And both of us, obviously, this, we're about to find out whether this is the most beautifully aged prediction, but even if it's not, it's come incredibly close. That both of us said, yes, Max Verstappen, at the start of the year, he's driving the fourth best car. He shouldn't be able to do it. And yet, McLaren having two drivers going for the championship, the way they want to be fair all the time, the way McLaren, unfortunately for them, are known to make errors here and there, we both said Max Verstappen to win the championship, and McLaren, and I think we both even said, McLaren have the best car, but I'm going for Max because they will take points off each other and they could ultimately fall short. Can you imagine if that prediction comes in? Because I certainly did not expect it to come in at any point, basically after the first 3 races, because it's like, oh, well, McLaren are absolutely clear. There's no chance here. And this is exactly like how the situation has played out. Like Max himself has made no kind of bones about it, basically saying, I am only in this title because McLaren are gifting it to me.
And another one,
and it's one more, and he needs one
today.
More.
Yeah, just one more, just before Christmas. That would be delightful. And honestly, be prepared for Tom Bellingham on the podcast if Max Verstappen is world champion at the end of Abu Dhabi, and be prepared for him on the watch long, because I think you'll reckon he's muted for most of it, but he will in fact just be a mess.
Oh my god!
But look, it's this is what we live for, right? As Formula One fans, is to watch something like this go down to the wire, and so many things can happen. Tommy, let's go to your most memorable moment, as we are still very much locked in with championship moments, aren't we?
Okay, my most memorable moment was Kimi Antonelli losing the position on the final, right near the end. Was it the final lap?
Penultimate lap.
Penultimate lap.
Yeah.
It's such a blur now, of course. It was a crazy tense end to the race. What an insane scenario that, and we'll talk about this later, on paper was the worst race of all time, and would have been without this McLaren strategy. And it was just tense. There wasn't much overtaking or anything at all. It was just tense. And when you had Carlos and Antonelli ahead of Lando, you knew it was crucial for the extra points to close in that championship. Because we did think, Lando's going to finish third easily here, but of course, when he ended up behind Antonelli and he could not pass him, he was not gaining with the DRS, which was quite a shock, has to be said. Thought he'd breeze past him and be fine, but as we said earlier, McLaren clearly not setting up the car for straight line speed because they thought they were going to be clear. And then at one point, Carlos was dropping back, and it was oh no, Lando's going to potentially finish third here. Antonelli desperately trying to hang on. But then that one mistake, crucially, allows Lando to finish third in Abu Dhabi and still clinch the title. And had it not been the way, we could have had a situation where it was Verstappen, Piastri, Norris, and Max wins the title. Although arguably we then have that scenario again about Piastri and Lando switching. So I just think this title, and my main kind of memorable moment, is just little moments like this, which I don't think it should have been a case where the championship was this close, as we've said all through the start of this podcast. But little moments everywhere in this championship, you're going to be looking back, whatever happens, of there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. It's because everyone immediately was wow, that could be a crucial moment in the championship.
Yeah, exactly. Every moment that we've had over the season doesn't feel that big until we get to the end of the season and we have a 3-way fight for the World Championship. Spain comes to mind, Tommy, but I'll do that after Abu Dhabi. If Max loses the title by 9 or less points,
I'm over it.
That will be quite the discussion. I don't think you will be over it though. Somehow, if he gains a few points and messes up.
I say I'm over it now, but when it happens, by the way it's looking. We'll see, because he's already been asked it, hasn't he, Max? But there's so many title scenarios, isn't there, about how things are going and what you'll look back on. Because one thing, we're all looking at the Max Verstappen scenario, of course, through Max Verstappen glasses of can't he win the title? In a weird way, had Oscar have won that race and it got to 12 points, we'd be talking about the 6-point swing that happened in Monza. And that would have meant that they would have been 1-2. Oscar would have won the championship. There are so many scenarios that are going to play out here, and whoever ends up losing, we can look back on. At the end of the day, like, obviously, like Max, if he misses out on the title, you'll look back at. You will, of course, look back at Spain and got to think like that's points down the drain. There were other moments where they cost it Brazil, but of course that one is a moment that just didn't need to happen. But if Lando doesn't win the title, so many points thrown down the drain. The DNF in Zandvoort, obviously the last 2 rounds as well. He's lost like 50, 60 points through like through just McLaren stuff.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah, it's a crazy scenario. And then of course, as we mentioned, Oscar, these moments where like he had to give up that position to Lando and things like that, or
less moments I think for Oscar though. If you look at the entire season, it's more like amazing
not
run
if it's
of
6
15
points
races.
at the end.
If it's that, then of course. But he had an amazing 15 or so races, and then he just didn't have pace.
Yeah, he had the championship.
It's very black and white, I think, with Oscar's season, whereas a lot more variables, I'd say, with Lando and Max's season. Question from Mr. Trevor Top. If Max wins the Drivers' Championship, it will be because of McLaren's fumbling. If Max loses the championship, it will be because of Kimi Antonelli. Would this be a fair assessment? That's harsh. That's so harsh.
It's very harsh.
You can't say it's because of Kimi Antonelli that Max would have lost the championship. It's because of Red Bull not making a car that could allow him to challenge consistently against the McLarens. Of course, Kimi Antonelli, there's the talk of course, what happened in this race in Qatar, but also in Austria as well, where Antonelli unfortunately took out Max and cost him a podium at minimum. That's not a fair assessment, though, because that is... the reason why I separate, for example, Spain and other things is because Spain was an actual moment of rage for Max Verstappen. I put that in a box that's very different to the variables of the season, because it is unique and it is something that Max had in his hands and could have dealt with it differently. But back to this question, yes, I agree with the first bit. If Max wins the Drivers' Championship, this is entirely on McLaren, and I feel for the McLaren PR people that have to come up with statements of how it was a successful season because they won the constructors again back-to-back, but didn't win the drivers.
Oh, my God.
It's tough. It'll be very tough for McLaren, and a really bitter pill to swallow if they don't win the drivers.
Yeah, I do want to also say something about this Kimi Antonelli situation, because he had nothing left, and unfortunately for Formula One drivers and the way social media is and toxicity and all that kind of stuff, I dread to think what some people are saying about Kimi Antonelli, and
especially because of GP's radio.
Right. Yeah, this is something I want to mention. I think that's incredibly unfair, and I know that like tensions are running high, and they wear their heart on their sleeve, and they probably they didn't know that was going to be broadcast, but playing something like one, saying that, and two, playing it out in the first place is just unfair, I think, completely on Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli is literally like Max Verstappen's son this year, and would probably like nothing more than to see Max win the title. So he's not throwing it in any way. And you look at like what happened to Timo Glock in 2008, when people were like saying that he's gifted the championship, and he almost had to, I think he's admitted that he's almost had to like hide away and stuff. Yeah, like we don't want to see another situation like that. So the championship is won over loads and loads of different moments. It won't be, and it's also incredibly unfair to just blame Kimi Antonelli on it, because he was pushing and he was doing everything he could, but you saw his final lap, his tyres were dead.
Yeah, he was about 3 seconds slower on that final lap. His tyres had hit the cliff that we questioned whether that existed or not. But round this circuit, it's very tough on the tyres. And I have to completely agree, Tommy, that Formula One is a strange sport where there are so many unknowns compared to other sports that the fans will jump on so many different conspiracy theories, and this one makes absolutely no sense. Why? The one thing people will say is, because it's a Mercedes engine. Oh yes,
like they care. Mercedes don't want.
Mercedes would not want to see McLaren, a customer team, win
the drivers' championship, because that's the PR. That's the PR.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Well. That's
it's terrible news.
Terrible
you have Ted Kravitz going to Toto Wolff. How does it feel that a customer is winning with your engine? They don't want that.
Yeah, because that just shows they've not built a good enough car. So
exactly. So anyone thinking that that's the case is insane, because you genuinely just have to look at Kimi Antonelli this year. He just runs to Max Verstappen at all times to have a chat with him, tell him where he finished and all sorts. So very silly if you do think that. Next question, P1 Patreon member Light. Do you think other teams and drivers want Max or the McLarens to win?
There will of course be, we mentioned about, Kimi Antonelli doesn't want this, doesn't want that. There will naturally be like biases throughout the grid. It's something we've seen in the past. There's relationships there. You've seen it throughout. Max, for example, has Racing Bulls on his side, and Lando, there'll be people that maybe want to see him win and things like that, or there's Fernando Alonso, Zach Brown, yeah. But what I will say is I hope we see exactly what we saw today in drivers and teams just running their own race and doing everything they can to maximize the result. I don't want to see a situation where, you'll say, of course you do, but it obviously won't happen because like Fernando Alonso, why would he be at the front? But it's like gifting Max positions to like make him win the championship, and equally like drivers not attacking the McLarens because they're worried about getting in the mix of the title fight. I just want to see every team and every driver try and race in Abu Dhabi for what they want, and they have to just not think about the championship. They have to just do their own race, and I really hope that that's what we see.
It's what you hope, but I don't see it happening in the slightest. Teams and drivers have their biases. Racing Bulls, I don't think, can play any kind of, factor in the McLaren fight because they're not quick enough. However, we've seen absolute categorical proof that Fernando Alonso is not making life hard for Max Verstappen if he somehow finds himself ahead of him. We saw that in the sprint. And
they could have done being a bit quicker today to help.
Could have done being quite a bit quicker because Fernando had a big old train behind him. Yuki will, maybe not stop in Abu Dhabi and just hope to God he gets ahead of the McLarens somewhat.
To do a Sergio Perez.
Yeah, but he'll need to have the pace he showed in the sprint because that fell off quite dramatically. He did score a point, but nowhere near to help Max today. I think that there are, I think quite a few teams and drivers want Max Verstappen to win, whether that's changed. And, they're all Formula One fans at the end of the day, aren't they? And they like to see a good storyline just like you or I do. So, but I think there are a lot of fans of Max Verstappen out there. But the one that we don't really know where the relationship currently lies is Max Verstappen and George Russell. And George Russell might be one of the only drivers that can actually get in the fight to upset this championship one way or another. And I believe George will be one of those drivers that does not care and will just try to win in Abu Dhabi and let's see what happens and where the dominoes fall.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a little spicy moment in the media pen, wasn't there, between Lando and George? If you haven't seen it, do you want to explain the moment for people that haven't seen it?
Yeah, it was a really bizarre situation. I think it was picked up by DAZN Spain, and they were just recording, and essentially it was all to do with qualifying, and a media reporter had essentially said to George that Lando had been blaming George for messing up his last lap. And so George mentioned that to Lando in camera shot and in audio listening view point, whatever you want to say. And Lando took it to heart. Absolutely was like, what are you talking about? And then essentially just, sort of slated the media for making up BS.
Because I can't believe you'd say, believe them over me.
Can't believe, you believe them over me and things like that. And Lando, quite rightly took it to heart, because if he hasn't said it, then fair enough. And then George seemed to sort of poke fun after that, and he was trying to say, I'm trying to help you win the championship, mate, if anything.
Oh, George said that sounds like something you would say, which is crazy.
He did say that as well.
That probably wound him up
just
even
having
more.
Banter, and it was hard to tell exactly how that scenario unfolded, but it did feel like Lando was genuinely upset by whatever the media had tried to do, which was wrong, by the way. The media absolutely should not be saying things that were categorically wrong, like just completely incorrect. George was out of the way on the straight. But anyway, the relationship between George and Lando, I think, is a respectful rivalry. I don't think it goes as deep as for George to move out the way to let Lando be world champion.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I don't. It's going to be fascinating to see how they all play it, but I'll just echo what I said before of like, please guys, just run your own, just let it play out, run your own race. What happens, and yeah, we don't want to see a situation, say like, I don't know, because can you imagine that situation there at the end where that was like Kimi Antonelli is that Glock moment where he's made a genuine mistake and it's made Lando win the world championship, or equally like Lando is catching Carlos Sainz and everyone's like, oh well, they're really good mates, and if he gets through, like, is Carlos going to try harder? I think he would, but then like, because of course he wants his podium, but then everyone online will say he isn't, and yeah, it's going to be a bit of a mess, I think, whatever happens, but let's hope that all the drivers just do their thing.
People will find a way to say someone did something when they absolutely didn't. Now, I have touched upon this a little bit, but we're going to get categorical answers from the pair of us for this one. So picture this scenario from Kuchu. It's the last lap of Abu Dhabi. Verstappen leads. Another driver is second. Piastri is third. Lando is fourth. Would McLaren make the call to Oscar? And if they did, would he do it? So how I'm picturing this at the moment is that McLaren absolutely would ask the question to Oscar. The question is whether he would do it. Oscar as a person would want to do it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think he would do it. I'm actually of the opinion that he would give the position to Lando, even if his corner, Mark Webber, etc., saying it wouldn't work in your favour in the team, the power dynamic, and everything else in between. I am now, I'm making this answer right now on the spot. I do believe he would let Lando through to win the title, because can you imagine? We're talking about the power dynamic, fine, but on the flip side of that, can you imagine the feeling in the team for the entire next season? The garages would be split going into 2026. I think there would be, feelings of negativity. The fact that Oscar didn't play the team game, which is all we ever hear about, is papaya rules and fairness and whatnot. So I do think Oscar would let Lando through at the last moment. But we've spoken about the reasons why he could also say no to that, and they're very, very viable as well. Of, well, what happens if blah 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 DNFs or there's a disqualification? But that being said, that is a very tiny, minuscule thing to happen, because it would have to happen to both Verstappen and Lando for that to crown Oscar as champion. Exactly. So I am going to say right now, I think it's yes to both of those questions.
I think, that he would do it. That McLaren would definitely ask him. They'd have to in that situation. Because obviously, it would be embarrassing for them to lose the title. I think he would have Mark Webber's voice in his head saying, "Do not do this."
Yeah.
What are you doing? But I think for the team and everything, like at the end of the day, Oscar's already given. I know this is because it would literally be giving him the world championship, but he's already done it to a point. When Oscar was leading, he's already made that switch back when he could have probably argued and said, no, absolutely not, F you. And he didn't. So I think he would do it again to keep that harmony in the team. I think it would be incredibly tough call. What I do want to throw in the mix is that, and you kind of said this before, that if Piastri was second, I know we're going into like scenario mode here.
Hey,
but
we're excited with Formula One fans.
We're excited.
This is what everybody does, by the way. If you're listening right now and going, it's all ifs, buts and maybes, if my grandmother had blah, 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 but the thing is, I know for a fact that each and every one of you in your friendship groups are saying these exact scenarios as well.
Also, on scenarios, what if the McLaren took each other out in the sprint? Oh, it happened. What if McLaren get a double DSQ in Vegas and Max is somehow, it's happened. Oh, like, you never know. Like the way this season has gone, it wouldn't
This
surprise
is
me.
a very realistic scenario out of everything we've had in the last few weeks.
So here's the scenario I'm putting on the table. Verstappen leads, then it's Piastri second, another driver third, and Lando fourth.
Yeah, so that's what I put on my Twitter.
Is it a different ball game? Even though it's exactly the same scenario, it's Oscar basically sacrificing himself for a podium. Do you think that changes the situation at all, or is it the same? Because I would argue that McLaren would almost be, for me, I don't think they would throw the World Championship for the sake of PR, but I also believe that McLaren are so in control of their image and want to be seen as this wonderful, fair, lovely team that everyone loves so hard that I think that would actually, which is an insane thing, but I genuinely think they would even question whether they'd ask him at that point. And they should, absolutely. but I think there's something even more embarrassing for McLaren that he sacrifices another position, even though ultimately it doesn't make any differse. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying, because I'm of the same opinion of the fact that on paper, it's not that big of a deal, but I think it looks so much worse. Oscar peeling off to the side, letting George Russell or whoever it is through, letting Lando through, and then not even being on the podium for the final race when he's been running in second. Can you imagine Australian media, by the way? They would cook McLaren. They would
on
gobble
a barbecue.
that up. I'm sorry, I should have used a better word than that, but that's just from the watch-alongs if you watch along. But for some reason, it's so much worse, even though it isn't really.
It isn't. It doesn't.
In a
on
year's
paper,
time,
it doesn't make
matter.
any difference to the situation. It's still Oscar Piastri sacrificing a podium for Lando Norris, so the driver in his team wins the title. But there just seems something so much more extreme about them being a car in between the two of them for it to happen. Like the media would go into frenzy, I think, over it.
They would.
And whether fairly or not, I don't believe it would be like unfair. This is just how championships are won. But like, I think Lando would get cooked in the media as well. I don't think fairly, like, because of course he's going to do that to win the championship, and he should be world champion easily by now. Yeah, it would be an absolute S show, I think, if that happened, which is crazy.
Yeah, I hope that should Lando win the world championship this year, I hope it's not tainted by whatever scenario plays out in Abu Dhabi. It would be his first world championship. It'd be such an incredible moment for him. And I firmly lay the blame, as they should, on McLaren in the last two races. Lando should be home and dry by now with the performances he's put in, but instead he's under this insane pressure. Oscar's now come into form. Max, you can never count out, and has somehow won Qatar. Did you realise that? He's won Qatar. How the hell's that happened after the start of the race? It's just, I would be really sad if this was somehow tainted with whatever plays out in the last race. But Lando is a deserving world champion.
Lando would care as well a lot about it if he got, like, if it played out that way. And there was this like media storm about it and people saying, oh, you got gifted the championship. I think that would really, affect Lando, whereas Max would be like, F you, I don't care, I've won the championship, thank you very much, see you later. I mean, look what happened in 2021, right?
Yeah, and I hope Lando, would learn to not care about that. But, again, this is another crazy scenario. One more scenario I want to throw in is that Oscar says no to says no to McLaren, says F you, I'm going to Red Bull, and then just finishes second. And, that would also create some crazy stuff.
That would be a in-car Alpine tweet, basically, from Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, he scheduled the tweet for like 3:45 local time.
Without my consent, McLaren have asked me to let Lando Norris through to win the championship. I do not agree, and I've signed a contract with Red Bull.
Oh dear. Well, look, we're having fun, aren't we? We
are. It's fun. Like, whatever. Like, you can say like, oh, it's if buts and maybes and scenarios and stuff. We have dreamed about this for years now, to have an actual championship finale. It's been a long time since 2021. And even then, before that, it hadn't happened since 2016. So, we've waited like 10 years and we've only ever had one showdown, and we've got another one. And by the way, it's between three drivers.
Crazy. A question from P1 Patreon member Zingy13. If it wasn't for McLaren fumbling their strategy, would this have been one of the worst races of the year?
Not one of the worst races of the year. I think they can't overtake. Like we mentioned about 2025 being it's all done at lap 1. It absolutely would be, because if McLaren hadn't done a different strategy, there was no interest in that Grand Prix whatsoever. And it was almost like a Monaco situation where we said, where in my head I was like, oh, well, at least the 2-stop will be interesting. It actually made it worse because everyone just went to the exact threshold of what was available on the quota of like, you have to do this 25 lap thing, and everyone would have just done exactly the same strategy. Like, we saw that to the point where people were like risking unsafe releases and double stacking and everything, to the point where like they had to do it there because people were just like stuck. So yeah, all the intrigue from this race has come over just the championship implications, not anything to do with the actual like racing and overtaking. Because I mean, even we talk about McLaren and how they should have won the race so easily, and a normal race, I think McLaren are winning that by 15-20 seconds. They are gone.
Yeah,
and yet Lando couldn't even pass Antonelli with DRS. It's just impossible around this track.
Yeah, horrific. The worst race of the year. I completely agree, Tommy. It's such a shame because on Saturdays, or to be fair, Fridays as well, with 2 qualifying sessions, it's great to watch. Really fast. And I echo my thoughts that I made. I can't remember if it was the last there's so many podcasts we've done. One of the thoughts I made of like, okay, Qatar, you have lots of money. Make an alternative layout for Formula One. It can't be that hard. Add some hairpins rather than these fast corners. Just literally get some Formula One drivers' feedback on how to make this a circuit where you can actually overtake. Because I genuinely think it's
Abu Dhabi did it.
Exactly, and there is promise, right? It's a cool track. It just needs some heavy braking zones. Turn 1 needs to be a heavy braking zone.
It needs a Bahrain turn 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah,
like
extend the DRS a little bit because I feel like the DRS is the activation of it is far too sort of late down the straight. Although to be fair, you weren't disagreeing with that. You weren't saying for it to be any further extended when Antonelli was under pressure from Norris. But terrible race. It's going to be a terrible race forever. It feels like, unless they make changes, and they have the ability to. So just make it happen. Next question from Traz Go. Why is Carlos in a Williams? What a drive. Look, I'm actually going to stop this narrative now of Carlos being in a Williams as a Ferrari Charles Leclerc fan. I think he might be in the right place, I genuinely believe this move that felt like a massive demotion. I've said from the absolute get-go that James Vowles is a team principal that I think just gets it. He's got all of the engineering knowledge. He's fantastic with people, and I think he's excellent with managing a team and the Williams outfit. So, yes, Williams aren't, consistently a top 4 team, but they have got 2 podiums with Carlos Sainz. Ferrari, on the other hand, are scrambling around, sliding, doing everything other than basically going in a straight line and going fast. So, I think Carlos is in the right place. I genuinely believe that Williams are on the ascendancy now. I really hope for them in 2026 with the new regulations that they improve even further and then can challenge. I think Alex Albon made a prediction that there'd be 1 higher up and they may be able to challenge for the occasional podium. Of course, that's a completely random prediction. No one knows how fast anyone's going to be. But back to Carlos's drive. His pace was utterly amazing. He wasn't far off of Max's pace on a very similar strategy, if not the identical strategy in terms of tyre life. And he drove the wheels off of that Williams. So much so it started disintegrating with about 7 laps to go and things started falling off. But Carlos, another podium, outrageously good.
Outrageously good again from Carlos, like you say. His turnaround in form, he was looking, as we said, the most disappointing driver, I think, really, at the start of the season with how we thought it was going to go. We thought Carlos, doesn't deserve to have that demotion to go down the grid and be in a Williams. And Alex Albon was driving absolutely superbly. And basically, by the kind of point of the season, like after Monza, Alex Albon was just scoring points for fun and was so far ahead, without sounding like the Drive to Survive thing of the fight for 8th that they love to mention. But he was so easily like best of the rest, it was like all but confirmed. In the last few races since Azerbaijan, Carlos has got a third, and a fifth, and Alex has scored no points. He's not been higher than 11th. And yeah, like Carlos is now only 9 points behind Alex in the in that kind of inter-team battle. Obviously, 9 points is going to be a lot in that car, but it shows like what a turnaround and what an exciting thing going into next year. As you say, there's two sides to this story. One, Ferrari are just a big joke at the moment, to say the least, and why would you want to be there? You go into the new season, of course, and yeah, like if Mercedes cook this amazing engine like we think that they might, Williams could be in a great position if they get their car right and have the best power unit in the back. And just to add a third option into the mix, and I don't want this to come across as like a backhanded compliment, but in terms of your like stock, you'd argue that Carlos Sainz, absolutely doing unbelievable things in a Williams, is making him much more kind of sought after driver than sort of like being there or thereabouts and not beating Charles Leclerc in a championship in a Ferrari. Of course, like, we've seen what Carlos can do in a Ferrari, and he deserves like to be considered as one of the best drivers on the grid, absolutely. But you can argue that like this position that he's in now, it's funny how Formula One works in that way, that Carlos it continues this run into next year. He's going to be like incredibly sought after by the top teams.
Certainly will.
And will he even want to leave? Unless Williams win the championship.
Are a top team, which might happen in years to come. Okay, let's head to biggest winner, driver or team. I think Max Verstappen might be getting a little vote here for somehow winning the race by 8 seconds. It has to be. It has to be Max Verstappen as the biggest winner. He is still in the World Championship when he should not be. Can I please just remind everybody that Max should be out of this championship mathematically, or at least, 22 points behind? It has to be Max for me.
Yeah, it has to be Max. Obviously, Carlos is a great shout, but Max, the fact that he's still in this title somehow is insane.
And then biggest loser. I know that, of course, McLaren, that they've lost a lot in the sense of.
Weirdly, I don't think you can say Lando. I think it's Piastri. In terms
I also
of
want to throw. Yeah, I think it's Piastri
not
from like
performance.
A championship context. He's lost more. I also want to throw an honourable mention to Isaac Hadjar, who was having a great race in P6, I think it was, and then he got a puncture, and then that was basically his race curtains. But it has to be biggest loser in the context of the championship to Oscar, which is gutting for him. Absolutely gutting.
Yeah, it's gutting, and for all the people that get triggered by the wording of this, we're not saying he's had a bad race by saying he's the biggest loser in terms of
no.
It's all
similar
on
to
McLaren.
Big Flop. Yes.
Because weirdly with Oscar, he was gonna, for like Lando, he had a situation, where he was probably going to finish third, finish fourth, whereas Oscar, it's basically him gone from like winning and really being close to the championship to now like kind of needing a big miracle to do it.
Yeah, would have been 12 points, and instead it is 16. Right, let's have a look at our predictions then, where it is 55-51 to Tom Bellingham. Has he sealed the deal with one race remaining, or is there somehow a Gallagher comeback on the cards? So, first and foremost, let's go into a good surprise, where initially I wanted to go for Oscar Piastri, but some boring man went for it instead. We'll get onto him shortly, but of course for me, I then changed it, went for Charles Leclerc, which I think, wow, what a drive from Charles Leclerc. P8, 4 points in a red dustbin. Let's go.
The ninth best car. Zero. Oscar Piastri I went for, of course. Good surprise.
Well
what a weekend from Piastri in terms of could have been the perfect clean sweep, of course, without McLaren's fumblings.
It could have. It really could have. Big flop. I went for Alpine, which, they were categorically awful in the sprint, and they finished last on the road and then third last. It's got to be a big flop. It has to be. I'm really sorry, Tommy.
Yeah.
Don't you sigh. I thought I was supposed to be the competitive one here. So that's 2 points for me for Alpine. Thank you, Alpine, for keeping me in this championship. You went for
Kimi Antonelli. I thought without his food additive he would fumble, but obviously,
right.
Yeah, Could have done with that on
George
the
in the
last
end.
lap, but
You were like, give me the point for that little lock up and.
I know, but yeah, Antonelli, beating George again. Having a great end to the year. Obviously, the narrative will be of the fact that little mistake, but yeah, another great drive from Antonelli and looking great going into the next year. So no points.
Yeah, and Russell kind of struggling once again, just got stuck in the train and ended up finishing 20 seconds behind Antonelli in the end. Right, of course, there's more predictions, so let's get into the sprint side of things. Sprint pole, I went for Max Verstappen. No.
I went for Lando Norris. No.
Sprint victory, I went for Max Verstappen. No.
I went for Lando Norris. No.
How has none of these come in? Because Oscar Piastri turned into the GOAT. Pole position, I went for Max Verstappen. No.
And I went for Lando Norris. No. By the way, that is peak P1 predictions.
It's insane.
That we're basically the championship's going to go
one way or the other.
And Oscar basically for the first time in 5 races, actually I'm the GOAT now. Thank you very much. And
ridiculous.
GOAT gets everything.
Absolutely crazy. Okay, so the race order in third place, I went for Oscar Piastri, which was incorrect.
I went for George Russell, which was incorrect.
In second place, I went for Lando Norris, which was incorrect.
And I went for Oscar Piastri, which was
correct. And then in first place, I went for Max Verstappen. Give me that point. Thank you very much.
And I went for Lando Norris, which was incorrect.
Okay. Now, our one crazy prediction. I went for Oscar breaks the podiumless streak. Ooh. My boy. Thank you, Oscar, for the point.
And I went for Stroll out qualifies Alonso, which is basically throwing away a prediction now, isn't it?
He had 2 opportunities.
I know, 2 opportunities.
And not even
most
close.
Useless qualifier of all time instead. Backing
ridiculous.
Me. Not going to happen.
Now our Patreon prediction. If you're a P1 Patreon, you can submit a prediction each episode. Mine was Peyton G. There is a controversial McLaren team order. I mean, the team order was to not stop. So.
I knew you'd try and wangle this one somehow.
Yeah, I know. No, there wasn't any. Sadly,
no,
there wasn't anything to get me a point for that one.
And Jim Clark is my GOAT. 5 or more different drivers on the sprint and race podiums, which had the McLarens not got through and Alonso not held them up, that would have come in, of course, with potential.
Close.
Potential, but no. Did not come in. So you have scored 1, 2, 3.
And you've scored 1.
You've scored.
No, I've scored
4.
4. I've scored 4 and you scored 2. Sorry. Wow. So we go to Abu Dhabi.
Oh, with 2 points
2 points in it. You best believe I am not uttering Charles Leclerc apart from if it's a big flop. I can promise you that one. Or am I?
Oh.
Maybe Charles will just be the champion. Not the champion, be the championship.
And now our rule about not being able to go for the same thing will literally become like the dirty tactics of the title finale of basically
Tommy's going to park the bus,
crashing into your championship rival. Essentially,
my goodness. Yeah, please don't crash into me, Tommy. Let it play out, just like you said earlier. Let it play out.
Yeah.
Oh, good, fantastic stuff. 2 points in it. We didn't Michael Massey this hardly at all, and it has gone down to the wire. What about the family top 3? It's 12-9 to the boring Bellinghams, and Ellie, my girlfriend, went for in third place George Russell.
And my dad went for George Russell.
So no points there. In second, Max Verstappen is what Ellie went for.
And my dad went for Oscar Piastri.
And in first place, Ellie went for Lando Norris, which was 0 points.
My dad went for Max Verstappen, so he's
it's
got
over.
2 points. It's over.
No!
The Constructors is 1.
All right, no,
the one everyone wanted.
Hear me out. Everybody wants a double points in Abu
Everybody wants a double
points.
Can I just say something absolutely hilarious as well?
Yeah.
As many of you know, and also thank you for the very kind comments about my dad. He absolutely loved it. He loved being on the pod and being showered with lovely, lovely comments about his appearance. But when I'd finished recording and went back downstairs, he had like a face like thunder, and I was like, "What's wrong? Like, what's up?" And he was like, "I was meant to say Norris."
Oh my God, and I remember you telling me this as well.
And he basically like had a brain fart and said Piastri, and that's got him the point.
So what you're telling me is
Stewart's
it was actually Lando P2 Championship back on.
So yeah, there we go.
Oh,
crazy.
Dean, come on. Give the point back. You didn't mean it. That's ridiculous.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, the boring
The
Bellinghams.
good news
Well
the good
done.
news is we'll get a grace prediction for the finale.
We will.
It doesn't matter. So
Yeah,
we'll get a good one.
Oh, good. Well done. Well done.
We might extend our lead when Colapinto finishes third.
Honestly, right? So 24 races, 3 predictions per race. That's 72 opportunities to score a point, and it's 13-9. I think we need to go back to the drawing board when it comes to the family top 3.
To be fair, everyone always like roasts how low that score is. You got to remember as well, like, and this is the thing we always say, like the amount of times we get the top 3 in order. Correct who's on the podium in the wrong order, and you don't get a point. So you get the two, like McLaren's the wrong way around, you don't get a point, but you're like, oh, it's close. So
that's the way it should be, by the way. I know people
100%.
have said, like, oh, you should get a point for it being
complicated.
In the wrong order.
Yeah,
no.
It's got to be right or wrong.
Correct, unless the Gallaghers could score points. But right, that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this quite manic podcast. A lot of theories, a lot of just fun discussion, really. I hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly have. We head to Abu Dhabi next weekend, where 3 drivers are in the fight. All of them could be crowned world champion, which is utterly insane to think about. We will, of course, be live on Saturday and Sunday for the competitive sessions, the last qualifying of the year and the last race of the year. Tommy, I can't wait for it. This is what I live for as a Formula One fan. I'm going to be grinning from ear to ear for the next few days, whilst we, of course, do driver ratings, have best reactions coming out tomorrow. How do you come up with some final thoughts to share with everybody?
I think what I'm most concerned about is how am I sleeping for the next few days, because this just championship implications and scenarios will be going around in my head again and again. I was a wreck after Brazil. I was like, well, at least the Band-Aid is ripped off, like it's done. At least I can chill out now.
Literally said that.
And then the fact that, we've gone into Vegas. Oh, it's still a really long shot. Oh, wow, okay, he's gained more points. And a 3-driver championship going into the finale. Whatever happens, whatever situation, whoever you support, just like drink it in, because this is what Formula One fans we've dreamed of. Like, we want a championship fight. And actually, I'll end on something. I was going to save it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Do you remember what your crazy prediction was at the start of the season?
It was a 4-way fight.
4-way title fight, and it's 3. Wow.
You could say it's 4 if McLaren are playing a big role here to make it as close as possible. If we're going to put McLaren as the 4th entity, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, that was the
craziest of crazy predictions in the first place.
For 3. Why did I go for 4?
For 3? You just got too much hype going into the season.
Yeah, because I thought Ferrari might actually be good. That was the thing. Maybe next time.
How have we got a 3-car fight going into the finale? I literally cannot believe it. Based on the start of the year, and where it's like, oh, okay, McLaren have won the championship. Here we go.
And Tommy, we've monitored your percentage throughout the entirety of the last few races, and it literally was like 0% after Brazil. What is it now? What is the Tom Bellingham percentage heading into the final race of Max Verstappen winning the world championship?
20%.
20%.
20%.
Cool.
It's going to take a lot, but I think the 20% is that McLaren have got it in them. Come on, McLaren.
We'll leave it on a positive. Thank you, McLaren, for giving us this.
Yeah. Please.
Without McLaren's blunders, we would not be. This would be over, and Abu Dhabi would be the least hype ever. But instead, we have this amazing championship fight, and my percentage is 40%. I think Max has a 40% chance of winning. And
I just think the way he's going to drive is going to be, we've not even spoken about the way
how he's going to drive.
How he's going to drive. Like, my God.
And I would say that Red Bull and Max will be closer than they have been in Qatar. I think that it will play more to Red Bull. Like, Qatar is number 1 on the McLaren hit list for fast tracks.
100%. And Abu Dhabi still suits them a lot. But you've got Max Verstappen, who's driving for the title now. And I don't actually think he's driven for the title really all year that much. We've not seen anything like absolutely crazy where he has to go for it for the title, whereas because he knows that it was such a long shot, but now we're going to see it.
And one more thing, because this podcast is crazy and we love it, Oscar Piastri will not be driving in free practice 1. Worth mentioning, because they have to field a young driver, and it is a championship decider, and Oscar misses an hour Mad.
Yeah, that is a crazy situation that McLaren have found themselves in. I'm sure the conspiracy theories aren't going to go crazy over that one.
Just look at the rules, guys. Come on.
Yeah, they literally have to do it.
That is it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you want to listen to a little bit more, then we will be doing some Patreon questions right after this. So come and join the P1 Patreon, support us, get ad-free listening, as well as lots of extra perks, access to our Discord, and so on and so forth. We'd love to have you over there. But until then, next weekend is Abu Dhabi, the finale. I cannot wait. Lock in. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.